الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا اللهم بما علمتنا وزدنا اللهم علما وعملا إنك ولي ذلك والقادر عليه. أما بعد، فهذا هو درسنا في بلوغ المرام للحافظ ابن حجر رحمه الله، وغفر الله لنا وله ولسائر المسلمين. وكنا توعدناكم بنبدأ بالمراجعة لهذا الكتاب الأول، كتاب الطهارة، من هذا الكتاب. وإن شاء الله نقول مستعينين بالله سبحانه وتعالى. قال المصنف رحمه الله كتاب الطهارة. We wanted to mention that this is the continuation of our class in the explanation of Bulugh Al-Maram and Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar. And we said that we're going to do a little review, inshallah, starting today, because we've completed most of the chapter. The first chapter is the first book of Tahara, of purification. And as we know, the purification is always we begin with that. And that's why all the authors, when it comes to the books of fiqh, they always begin with purification. And so we want to review that in these coming classes. And inshallah, for the benefit to review the knowledge, because it's very important to review the knowledge because it builds that way. It's not good to take a lot without reviewing the previous. As in any specialty, any science, we always have to review. And so الطهارة is purification. والطهارة نوعان. النوع الأول طهارة معنوية، والثاني طهارة حسية أو يعني حسية أو ظاهرة. نعم. So there's two types of purification. Okay, always. Another reason why the scholars, they began with the purification is because purification is not just physical, it's also spiritual. And that's why they always begin the books with this, because the benefit is the person inwardly and outwardly wants to be pure. Inwardly, which is the spiritual purification, الطهارة من الشرك ومن البدع ومن الحقد على المسلمين ومن الحسد والعجب والغرور والكبر وغير ذلك من أمراض القلب. فلا بد من الإنسان أن يطهر قلبه من كل مرض من هذه الأمراض، لأنها يعني تشوش على طهارته. لذلك يقول الله تعالى: أولئك الذين لم يرد الله أن يطهر قلوبهم. الله يقول أولئك الذين لم يرد الله أن يطهر قلوبهم. فسمى الله الطهارة ونسب وربطه أو أضافه إلى القلوب، لأن ذلك هو الأصل للإنسان ما يقوم في قلبه، كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم: ألا إن في الجسد مضغة إن صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإن فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهو القلب. So to review, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he mentioned in the explanation that the tahara is two types. The tahara which is spiritual, internal, and the tahara which is physical. And the internal, this is the most important one. And because the person this is why another benefit from beginning the books with this purification, because to begin the knowledge, a person must purify his intention. And so if he understands the purification inwardly first, then he will come into the knowledge in a way with the benefit, with a pure intention. Because of any knowledge, any chapter of knowledge you go into, and there's not purity of intention, there's not benefit. You will not achieve the right benefit without the intention, and that's the purification. So what do we purify from? Obviously from shirk. First of all, the heart must be pure from shirk. Allah said, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. On the day of judgment, when the children and the wealth will not help a person, no matter how much money he has or children he has, and so on, it won't help the person, except the one who comes with a pure heart, sound heart, healthy heart. Healthy meaning he is not carrying shirk. Shirk, first of all, showing off, or other diseases like innovations, wrong beliefs in the heart, even if they don't reach the level of shirk, bid'ah. If a wrong belief, this will affect a person's heart and make it sick. And of course, sins of the heart. The major thing with the heart is affected by is those diseases like personal hatred, personal, vendetta, or anger for personal reasons. These things are in the heart. So a person purifies the heart and makes it pure without any of such, personal ambition, hudud al-nafs, any personal hatred, with no justification. I mean, sometimes we hate for Allah. If we see something sinning, something bad, we hate it for Allah. But this is not because of that. This is some personal, reason. Or a person being arrogant, not accepting the truth. This is a matter in the heart. Or being amazed with oneself. Okay, this is a matter of the heart. So these are the things which the Shaykh, is saying a person purifies the heart first. Okay, this is why Allah said, those, speaking of the wrongdoers, they're the ones who Allah did not want to purify their hearts. You see, He said purify their hearts. So this is the most important. And so this is the spiritual, okay? And this is why the disbeliever is najis, right? The disbelievers, Allah said, ولا يدخلوا المسجد الحرام بعد عامهم هذا إنما المشركون نجس فلا يدخلون المسجد الحرام بعد عامهم هذا وبعد عامكم هذا كما قال تعالى إنما المشركون نجس. Allah said the polytheists, the idol worshippers, are najis, are filthy, not physically. You see, this is spiritually. Otherwise, why would a Muslim man be allowed to marry a Christian woman? Obviously, he's going to touch her. Okay, so it's not physical impurity, it's spiritual. Spiritual because they're lacking the tawheed, so they're shirk. This is the thing. That's the proof. And therefore, the Prophet ﷺ also said, "Inna al-mu'min la yanjus." The believer does not become impure, does not become filthy, meaning spiritually. Spiritually, he has tawheed, he has faith, so he does not become impure. Okay, the physical impurity or purity, al-tahara al-hissiyya, al-badaniyya. This is means when a person لو كان على أحداث حدث أكبر أو حدث أصغر ارتكب من نواقض الوضوء فعليه أن يتطهر من الحدث الأصغر أو عليه جنابة، هذا حدث أكبر، أو الطهارة من الأنجاس من النجاسة الحسية فعليه أن يتطهر من هذول. So what is the physical? The physical, that's what we're talking about in this chapter, in the hadith. Physical purification is of two categories. Purification of the impure state and the actual filth. Okay? Al-hadath wal-najas, or al-hadath wal-khubuth. What is the physical? What is the state? The state of impurity is like if a person breaks his wudu. Okay? Even if he passes wind, as we know, if a person passes wind, okay, then he breaks his wudu. This is impure state. But is there any filth on him? There's no filth, right? Okay, so when he goes to make wudu, what is he doing? Is he washing some filth? No, it's a state, it's a condition that he has to make wudu for, but he's not going to wash. He's washing his arms. Imagine, after what he goes to the bathroom. He's not washing filth. No, this is a purification of the condition, the state he's in. We talked about this before, like a person who has janaba, sexual impurity. Is there any filth that he's washing off his body when he's taking a shower? No, not really, unless there may be some remnant in his private area. But otherwise, why does he have to wash his whole body? Meaning his head. So such emphasis washing the head, putting the fingers. Is he going to remove some filth? No, obviously, it's the state of impurity. This is what's called al-hadith or al-ahdath. And the other way, and how do we do this? Obviously with water. Okay, so then we'll come after that the chapter of the water. Which water can we use, or water is pure, and when does it become impure? We'll talk about this in these hadith. So we use water for that, and also the second one we said, which is the you could say when I say physical impurity, meaning not in the heart, I mean of the body. Okay, it's not that when we said that the state of impurity, like I said, there's no filth on the hands when we wash, but it's not in the heart. That's the point. It's not like shirk or that, which was the spiritual impurity. What's the second type of physical impurity? Actually having filth on the body. Like if a person, he gets some urine on his clothing, okay, or on his body. He cannot pray in this condition, even if he has wudu. But he has urine on his shoes, for example. He has to wash it with water or anything that will remove. Could be dirt also. It could be anything that would remove that urine, or some chemical cleanser, okay, something. Or sometimes the sun will dry away that impurity. It could be, but that would take longer. So water is the fastest way. So we use water to cleanse our clothing or anything in our body of filth. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. Okay, so now then he says Bab al-Miyah, the chapter of the waters. Okay, now we're talking about the water, because this is by which we cleanse ourselves physically. As Allah said, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا. Allah said ma'an tahura. Tahura means mutahhir. What is Allah said? He sent down for us water which is pure and purifying. Not only it's pure in itself, it's clean, the water, it also purifies from the physical impurity. That purifies our bodies and our clothes and so on. And now, and to purify from the hadith, the condition of pure impurity, one has to use water. Okay, except if there's no water, right? As will come, as Allah said, فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا. Allah said, if you don't find water, then you make tayammum. Okay, but that means that as long as we have water, we have to use water. As we all know, we have to use water as long as it's there, and as long as we can physically use it. We don't have a wound or something that's going to get infected and so on, or the water is not too cold. Sometimes if the water is too cold and we cannot warm it, then we can make tayammum, as is reported from the Sahaba, because we may get sick from putting this very cold water on our bodies. So this is an exception. So and that applies to all the waters, whether it be water that comes from the skies, or comes up from the earth, from the wells, or that we find in the streams, or the lakes, or the rivers. All that is included in the water, which is pure, and we can purify with it. So the first hadith. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في البحر هو الطهور ماؤه الحل ميتته. أخرجه الأربعة واللفظ وابن أبي شيبة واللفظ له. So the first hadith is a hadith Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said about the ocean. It is pure, the water is pure, and its animals, inhabitants, the dead animals of it, meaning the fish and the like, are lawful for us to eat. The dead of the sea is lawful. So the water dwelling animals, the fish and the like, crocodiles and even water snakes, okay, and what do you call it, frogs, okay, they live in the water, okay, at some portion of their lives, so they are considered water dwelling animals, or so we are allowed to eat them dead or alive, okay, meaning alive, meaning we find them and we kill them, obviously. But obviously, if we find them dead, that's the point. We find them dead, we're allowed to eat them. Okay, so here, this is a story behind this hadith. The story is قد ورد في سبب الحديث أن رجلا من الصحابة سأل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال إنا نركب البحر ونحمل معنا القليل من الماء فإن توضأنا به عطشنا أفنتوضأ من ماء البحر فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم هو الطهور ماء الحل ميتته. So this is the full hadith. That is the story that one of the Sahaba said, we go into the on the ship in the ocean, and we only have a little bit of water carrying with us. If we use this water to make wudu, then we won't have enough to drink. So are we allowed to make wudu with the ocean water? You see, this is the question. In response, the Prophet ﷺ said this hadith: the ocean water is pure and you can purify with it, and the dead is halal. Okay, so that's the story. And just to summarize the rest of the hadith, and of course, when we say the dead of the ocean or the water, it means those that live there. It doesn't mean a land-dwelling animal like a sheep that happens to go into the water and dies. No, of course not. This is a land-dwelling animal. So this would not apply to be lawful for us because it's a dead meat. The sheep is dead meat. Only the one that's the animal which originally lives and habits the water. Okay, the next hadith. Oh, there's a principle now. The Shaykh mentioned this is an important principle, which is when he says all the inhabitants of the water, okay, it's halal maytatu. نعم أن الطاهر نعم لكن لدينا قاعدة وهي أن كل حلال فهو طاهر وليس كل طاهر حلالا. Okay, so there's a principle here. What do we understand when we understand that the fish is halal for us to eat, okay, even if dead? It means that it's pure, meaning it's not filthy. Okay, there's two aspects we're talking about when it comes to what is lawful or unlawful for us. There's the aspect of consuming it, the fish, and there's the aspect of is it filthy or not. There's a principle in this we can apply it to generally, okay, which is kullu halalin fahuwa tahir. Everything that's halal for us to eat, then it's not filthy. It's not filthy to touch. Okay, we don't have to wash it off our body. So someone might say, oh, for example, the fish, the dead is halal for us to, the dead fish to eat it, okay? But if it gets on my body, I have to wash it off because it's filthy. No, we don't understand that. Because the principle is anything that we can consume in our body, then we do not have to wash off our external body. That makes sense, you know. It's from the logical standpoint. يعني لو كان هذا الشيء يعني لا تتنجس اليد، عفوا، لو كان هذا الشيء يجوز لنا أن نتناوله في بواطننا، فأن نمسه بظاهرنا جائز من باب أولى. This is the condition. See, if we're allowed to take it inside, then for us to be on the outside of our body is more so lawful. Is more so. You know, this is logical. Also, we understand from the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, قُلْ لَا أَجِدُ فِي مَا أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ مُحَرَّمًا عَلَى طَائِمٍ يَطْعَمُهُ إِلَّا أَن يَكُونَ مَيْتَةً أو دما مسفوحا أو لحم خنزير فإنه رجس. So here Allah say, I do not find anything unlawful for to be eaten in that which is revealed to me. There's nothing that's unlawful to eat, to consume, except that it be dead meat, okay, or it be the blood which at the time of the slaughter which comes out of the neck, or it be the pig meat. Why? Allah said, because it is filthy. Because it is filthy. See, that's the point of evidence. Because it is filthy, okay, that's why we can't eat it. Okay, that's why we can't eat it. So, na'am, فَكُلُّ نَجِسٍ haram. Oh, this is the opposite. Na'am. So we said everything that's pure, that is lawful for us to consume, then we can touch it and we don't have to wash it off our bodies. The opposite is true also. Kullu najisin haram. Kullu najisin haram. So this means that if it is filthy and we have to wash it off our bodies, then for sure we cannot take it inside our stomachs. This is the, you could say, the reverse way to look at the saying that everything that's pure to touch we can consume in our bodies. The opposite, it's understood that anything that is impure to get on our bodies, then more so we cannot take it inside our stomachs. Okay, and that's the proof.
It doesn't necessarily mean you have to make wudu after touching. So, for instance, the pig.
No, I mean you have to wash it. Yeah, not the wudu. Yeah, you're right. It's not about wudu, but you have to.
Purification in general.
Yes, this is the physical filth that comes on the body. So, like the pig meat is like urine, the meat, right? Because Allah said, وَلَحْمُ خِنْزِيرٍ. Okay, the pig for sure, the meat for sure is filthy. Okay.
Coming in contact with it.
Yeah.
Requires purification.
Yeah, I mean you can't, for example, have for example, I don't know, to pray with it on your body, for example. You have to remove it from your body because it's filthy. It's like urine. Yeah.
Not necessarily make wudu.
Not necessarily make wudu. No. It doesn't affect the wudu. Just like urine. If a person has urine for some reason from someone else, he washed somebody, for example, a patient, and he got urine on his body, he still has wudu. He still has wudu. All he has to do is wash that from his hand or wherever, and he can pray. He does not have to make wudu. Right? For example, clear example, if he's cleaning the diaper of the baby washing the diaper, right? Through the process, he'll get some feces on his hand. Okay, does that break his wudu? No, it doesn't break his wudu. But he has to wash that before he can pray off his hand. So now, the opposite now, is it true? Like we said, kullu halalin fahu tahir, walaysa kullu tahirin halalan. Walaysa kullu tahirin halalan. The opposite is not true. That not everything which is pure to touch, okay, to get on our bodies, is halal for us to take inside. Not every. You see, because some things they are adequate to touch, okay, but they're not fitting to take inside our body. The obvious example, like a poison. A poison is not najis. A person who wants to touch the poison, he can touch the poison, but it's a poison. It's a haram for him to take it inside his body. Like, for example, cigarettes. Okay, cigarettes, or to take it inside his body, smoke it, haram. Okay, it's haram. فَلَيْسَ كُلُّ طَاهِرٍ حَلَالًا. It's tahir. If a person wants to touch the cigarette, no problem. He's not going to get his hand dirty by touching. Even khamr, there's difference of opinion, but khamr also, the more correct opinion is that the alcohol هو طاهر حسيا ولكن حرام تناوله حرام شربه. Like alcohol, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he mentioned that it's filth, it's like the mushrikeen filth, like we mentioned, the disbelievers, it's a spiritual filth. Likewise, the alcohol, it's a spiritual filth, or I could say it's not filthy. It doesn't, it's not like urine. Okay, it's not like urine, but a person is haram to take it inside because it makes him intoxicated. It's haram. So that's how we understand. So to revise that, كل حلال فهو طاهر وليس كل طاهر حلالا. كل حلال طاهر وليس كل طاهر حلالا. So everything that's tahir is pure physically, is halal for us to consume it. But the opposite is not true. Not everything that is pure to touch is halal for us to consume. So okay, so next you mentioned so this is one of those instances when the Quran is specified by the hadith. Okay, because Allah said in the Quran, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةِ, the dead animal is haram. General, it's a general wording, مطلقا. Okay, ولكن قيد هذا الإطلاق حديث أبي هريرة هذا وحل حديثه الحل ميتته. Okay, so here the hadith, it specifies the Quran. The Quran came general, right? All dead is haram. That includes what? Fish too, right? Fish and land dwelling and sea dwelling. But there are instances when the hadith, as Allah said, that وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ. Allah said, we sent down to you the Quran so you would explain to the people what has been sent down to them. So there's wording in the language, there's general wording, and there's specific specification. We always give al-muqayyad muqaddam al-mutlaq. So this is a principle that we have. When we have such texts like this hadith, it says that the fish dwelling dead is halal. So how do we combine this with the ayah? Allah said the dead meat is haram. We say we give precedence to the specific over the general. Okay, or the restricted verse or evidence is given precedence, or it specifies. You can say it's an exception from the general. Okay, it's an exception to the rule. The general rule applies still. Dead is animals are haram, which would apply generally, but to exclude it from that is the sea animals. Okay, so this is a very important principle because we get a lot of texts, in the Quran and Sunnah that come generally and specific, So how do we understand? Okay, this is how we understand, and there's many examples of that. So here also, so next hadith we'll take on Abi Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الماء طهور لا ينجسه شيء أخرجه الثلاثة وصححه الإمام الألباني رحمه الله في صحيح الجامع. ونذكر إن شاء الله نعم. So نعم نذكر الحديث التالي. وعن أبي أمامة الباهلي رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الماء لا ينجسه شيء إلا ما غلب على ريحه أو طعمه أو لونه. أخرجه ابن ماجه وضعفه أبو حاتم والألباني ولكن المعنى صحيح. وللبيهقي الماء طهور إلا ما تغير ريحه أو طعمه أو لونه بنجاسة تحدث فيه. فالمتن يعني سند ضعيف ولكن المعنى صحيح. So these next 2-3 hadith, this is about, now we're talking about the purity of the water. When is it water that we can use to purify, whether it be the condition of making wudu or cleaning the filth off our body or our clothing? Which water? The hadith Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu from our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, water is pure and purifying, tahur. Nothing can make it impure. La yunajjisuhu shay. Nothing will make it impure. This is one of those, another general text. Okay, nothing, is it mean nothing, or this is like a general wording? We understand a general wording because there's ijma', there's consensus of the ummah that if the water changes, whether it be a lot of water or little water, if it changes in one of 3 characteristics, attributes, then it becomes, with impurity, it becomes impure. يعني هناك إجماع أن الماء إذا تغير بنجاسة في لونه أو ريحه أو طعمه فصار نجسا باتفاق بالإجماع. So there's no difference of opinion amongst the scholars, and this is based upon some texts. Okay, some texts have weakness, but there are some texts that indicate this. But this is the consensus. Because why? It makes sense that once the water changes in one of the 3 attributes, it's not water anymore. You see, it's changed. It's left the pure water state to some impurity, because this impurity has affected and mixed with the water such that it changes the attributes. You see, what are the 3 attributes? Whether it be the color, or the taste, okay, or the smell. The color, the taste, or the smell of the water. So, for example, if some urine falls into a bucket of water, okay, and afterwards the smell comes from the bucket of urine, then it's not considered pure anymore. Okay, what if the color has the yellowish color of urine? Okay, then it's not water anymore. We cannot make purity with it. Or the taste, if someone, for example, unknowingly tasted it and said, oh, this tasted filthy, okay, then it's filthy. But the person who is determining this should be a person who is not someone who is mutawasswas, someone who has waswasa. Some people, they have, too much doubts, so any little thing they might think it's impure, okay. This is not the one we consider his determination of what is impure or not impure. A person who is free from that whispering, we say, if you say so, okay, we take that it's impure. And so the water, basically changes the condition of it. And there's a hadith also that proves or indicates that. وهو لما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في السمن تقع فيه الفأرة قال ألقوها وما حولها لأنها يعني وهذا هو الحديث، انتهى الحديث، لأنها هي وما حولها ستكون نجسة. يعني إذا ماتت الفأرة في داخل السمن أنتنت رائحتها وأنتن معها السمن. So here this is one of the proofs for this consensus. The logical proof we mentioned. The logical proof that if the water changes and smells like urine, or tastes like urine, or has the color of urine, logically it's not water anymore. Now this is the predominant ingredient is urine. is dominated the matter. The hadith also, this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, this hadith in Bukhari, he said that if a mouse falls into the butter, okay, and the butter, at that time, was viscous. It wasn't like the butter we have, because there's very hot climate, right? So it's not going to be hard butter. They used to have butter, Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah explained, that was kind of viscous, okay? So it's not water, but it has some thickness to it, okay? So when he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the mouse falls in it, then throw out the mouse and whatever is around it of the butter, okay? Why would he say whatever is around it, okay? Because naturally that butter that's been come in contact with the mouse is going to change in quality. It's not going to be butter anymore. It's going to have the smell of filth, okay, and the taste of filth, and maybe the color of filth, okay. So this is a hadith that indicates that meaning. So a person has to throw out not only the mouse, okay, in this hadith explains, but also whatever's around in the immediate surrounding that mouse where it fell. But otherwise, the rest of the butter, you don't have to throw it away. That's the understanding of the hadith, because it did not come in contact with the mouse, okay. Unless, of course, for some extreme reason, unless, of course, it's very liquidy, okay. If it's a very liquidy substance, okay, then it's going to spread very quickly, the filth of the mouse, all right. We're talking about something viscous, a little bit thick, obviously. Okay, so now one more benefit about this. We said what happens when the water falls into it something impure, like urine, and the attributes, one of these attributes change. What if the water, something of pure substance falls into it, like soap, okay, or like you could say za'faran, or some scent or something, or some substance, soap, okay. When is it still water that we can make wudu with? Okay, you could also say some water has a rusty color. Okay, when is it water that we can use, and when can we not use it? Okay, the explanation هو أن الماء الذي شرع لنا التطهير به هو الماء المطلق الذي لم يضف إلى شيء من الأمور التي تخالطه، فإن خالطه شيء أوجب إضافته إليه، كما يقال ماء ورد ونحوه. فليس هذا الماء هذا ما هو الماء المقيد، بل يخرج من مسمى الماء إطلاقا ويضاف إلى شيء آخر، فخرج من كونه ماء مطلقا الموصوف بأنه طهور إلى شيء آخر. So here the scholars explain, if the for example, what you have something called rose water. Rose water is water, right? But the water now is not the general water. Now it's now connected to another substance. I mean, that other substance is dominant in it. So now it's not called water anymore. This is called rose water. Or you could say like juice, okay? Juice, orange juice. Orange juice, okay, was water, has water in it. But once you add, for example, juice to it, okay, and then the juice becomes the predominant element, now it's not called water anymore. It's called juice. So this juice, what is the ruling on it? Can a person go in the fridge and take the juice or the rose water and make wudu with it? No, he cannot. Because this is not the water which is mentioned in the Quran, ma'un tahur. No, this is now juice. It has a different name. It's not water anymore. We can only use water. It's pure. We can drink it, right? But we cannot make wudu with it. Okay, soap. Soap, it depends. How much, basically, soap is it? Is it so much soap that now the soap is the predominant ingredient in this water, then we cannot make wudu with it. But if it still has predominantly water, but just soap added to it, we can make wudu with it. So it's a judgment, but this is just to explain, because that a question may arise. And then the next hadith, which is hadith Abi Umama al-Bahili radiyallahu anhu, قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الماء لا ينجسه شيء إلا ما غلب على ريحه أو طعمه ولونه. We said this hadith is weak. Okay, the scholar said, Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah and others, the hadith that says the wording that unless it changes in its scent or the smell or the color or the taste, it's pure. That specific wording is weak, but the meaning is correct based upon the ijma', the consensus of the ummah, based upon the consensus of the ummah and the logical proofs and the hadith of the butter we mentioned. Okay, those are proofs, but this hadith is weak, just so you know. Okay, so now, so then the Shaykh mentioned وهذا أيضا مثال للمطلق والمقيد والعام والخاص. قلنا الحديث إن الماء، حديث أبي سعيد إن الماء طهور لا ينجسه شيء، هذا يعني عام، ولكن يخصصه الإجماع، وهو مطلق ويقيده الإجماع. So this is another example. This is another example of the principle that there's a general text and there's a specification. We mentioned the first example, the general text, all dead is haram. Dead is haram to eat, dead meat. That's general. We have the hadith that specifies it and it restricts it to the lawful, the dead of the sea. This is another example. The hadith says the water is pure, nothing can make it impure. This is general wording, okay? This is general wording. And this is like, you could say, the general case. And this, we use this in our speech all the time, This is, there's no way this could happen, you could say. Or for example, you could say like, this room is always clean, okay? This room is always clean. But there's exceptions to that, obviously. It's just a general wording. And this is the matter of speech. This is how people talk in generalities. But that doesn't mean that in the legislative speech, the speech of the Quran and Sunnah, that likewise you can have restrictions of the generalities. So likewise the water is pure and nothing can make it impure. This is generally the case. But the specification and the restriction of that is if it changes in one of the three qualities. Because that is the ijma'. And that ijma' is given precedence because it's specific, because it mentions something specific about these three qualities. So that is given precedence over the general wording that nothing can make it impure. Okay, so that's how we combine the text. And then, and also we understand from this hadith that there's only two categories of water. Although some books of fiqh, they mention there's three categories of water, but really there's only two. As Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said that when Allah said يعني إن الماء طهور لا ينجسه شيء يعني والأدلة الأخرى دلت على أن الماء إما طهور وإما نجس. ليس هناك ما يسمى بطاهر غير مطهر. This in some books of fiqh, they say the water is three categories. But based upon what we've taken so far and what is related regarding the water, it's only two categories. Either it's pure and purifying, and we can make wudu with it and so on, or it's impure. There's no third category. You see? That's what we gather from this. As opposed to some scholars, they said either it can be pure, it can be impure, and it can also be pure but not purifying. You see? But there's really no evidence for that third category. As long as it's pure and it's water, it's purifying. We can use it to purify ourselves from the conditions or the impurities. Okay, so that's just something to clarify. And this is whether it be a lot of water or a little bit of water, doesn't matter. Okay, and we mentioned that because there's another hadith. Inshallah, we'll finish with this one, final hadith for today. Now, هو حديث عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا كان الماء قلتين لم يحمل الخبث وفي لفظ لم ينجس أخرجه الأربعة وصححه ابن خزيمة والحاكم وابن حبان وضعفه بعض الأئمة منهم ابن القيم رحمه الله وغيره. So here, this next hadith, and we'll finish with this, is the hadith Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, if the water is of a certain quantity, which is called qullatan, okay, which is 2 qulla. Qulla is like it's a measure of a quantity. It's basically 2 qullatan is like 5 water skins. The water skin, I don't know, the generally I can't. It didn't mention exactly, yani here, but basically if you have a good amount of water, basically a good amount, 5 water skins put together is a good amount of water. The hadith says if the water reaches this quantity, okay, لا ينجسه he said if the water reaches this quantity, لم يحمل الخبث, then it will not carry impurity, meaning it will not become impure. It will not become impure.
But even if just like you were saying, the dominant ingredient is more dominant.
Yeah.
Even if that's the case.
Yeah, this is what we're going to explain. Though this hadith is weak.
Oh.
See, that's the problem. This hadith is weak, according to some scholars. Other scholars say it's authentic. So we'll say assuming it's authentic. Okay, just to on that assumption. What does it mean? We have to combine all the evidences. When it says, again, this is a generality, meaning usual case when there's a lot of water and you put a little bit of impurity in it, it will not have an effect. It will not have an impact because the water will be the predominant ingredient, and the impurity is too small to change any of these 3 attributes, whether the taste or the smell or the color. This is the usual case, but not always. What if you have a lot of water, a big jug of water, and you put in a lot of impurity? Then obviously it changes. Okay, so the point is to summarize, the determining factor is not the quantity of the water, because that's not determining, because like we mentioned, we have hypothetically you put a lot of impurity, it will change. So it's not the quantity, but rather the characteristics of the water. When one of these 3 characteristics change, it's no longer water, rather it's impure. Except, of course, the very extreme example, ocean. An ocean is different. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ did not, this was not in his he never traversed the ocean. Okay, so he's talking about what is usual surroundings of the people of the Sahaba, what water they encountered. They encountered well water, streams, and such types of water. They did not encounter at his time frequently the ocean. Okay, so he's not when you have a big body of water like the ocean, of course, it's not going to become impure by pouring.
Or river.
Yeah, a river usually will not be good. Yeah, a river will not become impure. There was not usual that they would encounter rivers at that time. There's no rivers, except if someone traveled. So he's talking about what they encountered usually. So these types of big bodies of water, you can put filth in it and it will not change. So yeah.
There's a river in India, the Ganges, where the Hindus they go there, they do all kinds of things. They dump cremated ash in there, in the bed in there, and there's even sewage somehow getting into the river. And for years they've been talking about cleaning that because it's not clean.
If there's if there's sewage, it could have an impact. If there's a lot of sewage daily from large quantities, eventually it could change one of these three qualities of the water. So there's, but like an ocean or a lake, very unlikely. It would not happen. So this is this is a problem, pollution, obviously. So this is if any so we go back to the principle: if one of these three categories changes, it smells like filth, tastes like filth, or the color is of filth, we cannot use it, we cannot drink it, we cannot purify ourselves with it. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Now, you see that river now, of course, it's a long river. And when this happens, when the Hindus go to do the rituals, it's a very minute area compared to the extent of the river. Now, downstream of that river, at some point the water starts to clear. Is it not still dirty as a result of what's coming from?
No. It would be like so wherever that locality is, where the filth is there, if that local water in that river is filthy, that is the only part that's filthy. Okay, any other portion downstream, if it has the pure characteristics of water, unchanged by filth, is pure, because the water regenerates. Obviously the water replenishes itself, and so in that process, either that impurity gets cleaned away, or it gets diluted away. When it's diluted, and the percentage or whatever the proportion of that water of that having filth in it is very minute, then it's water. It's back to water again. So, but we'll mention inshallah in the rest of the chapter what there's prohibitions to urinate, in the water. That's standing water. Okay, because standing water is different than running water. That's another issue we'll talk about. If it's standing, like for example, like a little lake or a little creek or something, it's not running. There's different rules now. Okay, because it's more likely when it's not running that the filth will remain in that area for a longer period of time. Okay. And so a person may come immediately after, right? And the person urinates in the water, and a person comes immediately after him, and in stagnant water, that urine is still, still there, And so even if it's not impure, it's repulsive, It's repulsive. It's something that is not respectable, and it's offensive to do that. But if it's running water, less so that it's going to be remaining or having any trace of impurity, because it's running, it's flowing water. But inshallah, we'll talk about that in the next class and review that inshallah. إن كان في الأمور بقية والله تعالى أعلى وأعلم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبارك الله فيكم أجمعين. Inshallah, we'll conclude there, and tomorrow is the class in Sirah, inshallah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those. اللهم اجعلنا من الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اجعل ما قلنا وما سمعنا حجة لنا لا علينا. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
But eventually you're going to need to help me a lot about that well of Buddha, because